The Digital Production Buzz is brought to you by Keyflow Pro, media asset management software designed to meet the needs of work groups at an affordable price.
Tonight on The Buzz, we are looking at set design with a side trip to Sundance. We start with Chuck Parker. He's the executive director of the Art Directors Guild in Hollywood. This group represents production designers, art directors, set designers, and the entire team of people that design and build sets. Tonight, he explains who they are, what they do, and what filmmakers need to know to give their projects a sense of place. Next, Mark Andrew Reyes is the lead theater technician for the Conejo Recreation and Park District Cultural Unit at the Hillcrest Center for the Arts in Thousand Oaks, California. Tonight, he shares his thoughts on the challenges of set design in a non-professional environment. Next, Marti Romances is the creative director for Territory Studio. They create digital visuals for on-set effects like monitor walls, user interfaces, and holographic images. Their film credits include Blade Runner 2049, The Martian, Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, and Avengers: Age of Ultron. Tonight, Marti explains what they do. Next, Jayse Hansen is a fictional UI designer for film. If you can think of a big-name movie, Jayse has probably worked on it. Tonight, he talks about creating those holographic and virtual set pieces that enhance a movie. All this, plus a special report from the Sundance Film Festival from filmmaker Maxim, Jago, and DeRuvo with our weekly doddleNEWS update. The Buzz starts now.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative,
one show serves a worldwide network of media professionals,
current,
uniting industry experts,
production,
filmmakers,
post-production,
and content creators around the planet.
distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
And welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for the creative content industry covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. My name is Larry Jordan. Tonight, we're going to start with the news, then spend the rest of the show talking about production and set design. For news, we have our weekly doddleNEWS update where DeRuvo reports on the top stories of the week. Then, Maxim Jago reports from someplace warm as he attends the Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah. This evening, he shares his impressions of the show. Then we shift gears to look at set design. This is a subject we don't cover very often, and I'm excited to meet tonight's guests. We'll have a chance to talk about physical sets, virtual sets, production design, interface design, all the different elements that go into creating a believable reality on the screen. This will be a fun series of conversations. By the way, I want to invite you to subscribe to our free weekly show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Every issue every week provides quick links to the different segments on the show, plus articles of interest to filmmakers. And best of all, every issue is free and comes out on Saturday. Now it's time for our doddleNEWS update with James DeRuvo. Hello, James.
That January is almost over.
It is almost over. There is hope, however, that spring is on the way.
Oh, yes, indeed.
So what do we got that's news today?
Well, I don't know if you have been trying to upgrade your editing computers by getting a more powerful, high-performance graphic card.
Well, I would...
trouble finding them.
Really?
Yes, because there's the current cryptocurrency craze, which includes Bitcoin. People are building these cryptocurrency mining rigs, and what they're doing is they're buying up all the high performance video cards out there, like the NVIDIA GeForce and the AMD. Radeon Pro, they're buying them all up, and so there's none of them available for regular people who want to use them for video editing and gaming. It's just the craziest thing. And these custom cryptocurrency mining machines are used to solve these complex mathematical problems pertaining to the blockchain verification when you're using Bitcoin or Ethereum to pay for stuff. And so therefore, with the current value over $20,000 per Bitcoin, is any wonder this is happening? But nobody has any graphics cards, and if you wanted to buy one used on eBay or Craigslist, they're actually going for more than they sold brand new. It's the craziest thing.
Well, it almost feels like we're back in the Wild West again. I'm reminded of the 1880s.
You know what? We are experiencing a 21st century version of the gold rush in California back in 1888. The websites and stores are sold out of these high-grade video cards, and what are available is fetching top dollar, so you're not going to get one on sale either. And even Kodak is getting into this game with their own cryptocurrency and a machine that you can rent for $3,400 for 2 years, and you have to give them half of your profit.
All right, I'm going to hang on to my graphics cards. What else we got that's in the news?
Well, you should get into the cryptocurrency mining game. I know a guy, Larry. But what else is going on is DJI introduced a new drone this week called the Mavic Air and calls it the perfect aerial filmmaking tool. It's about half the size of the current Mavic Pro, and this new drone fits in the palm of your hand, and so it's very similar in size to the DJI Spark, but with retractable rotors, landing feet, and a 21-minute flight time. It shoots 4K video at 30 frames per second, and it has a redesigned 3-axis gimbal that's recessed into the drone's body to keep it even more stable than the Mavic Pro is.
Well, is this size reduction typical of what drones are going through today?
That seems to be the trend. Drones are getting faster, smaller, have longer battery life, and better cameras. The Mavic Air is really what the DJI Spark should have been when it was announced 9 months ago. And with its super smart features like gesture control, advanced pilot assistance, and a cool new asteroid quick shot mode, which starts at a tiny planet and then zooms in right to you like it's an asteroid about to hit you, it makes it to where almost anyone can capture that perfect cinematic aerial shot.
Okay, that's the DJI Mavic Air drone. What are the stories you're following this week?
Other stories we're following include Apple may stop making the first-generation iPhone X by next summer. Red provides more details on their hydrogen mobile phone, and it looks like it's going to be a game changer. And the future is bright, literally, for small HD, as they've announced the 502 Bright external video monitor.
And James, where can people go on the web to keep track of everything going on in the industry?
All these stories and more can be found at doddleNEWS.com.
And James DeRuvo is the editor-in-chief of DoddleNEWS and joins us every week. James, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
See you next week.
Bye-bye. In addition to the industry news that James just reported, there's another big event going on this week, the Sundance Film Festival. Filmmaker Maxim Jago is at Sundance and shares his thoughts on this event. Hello, Maxim. Welcome.
Hello there, Larry. How are you?
I'm talking to you. It's a great way to start any show. What brings you to Sundance?
Well, actually, I don't have a film in the festival this year. I came to raise finance for a film and to just get a sense of what's going on, what people are interested in. But also, Sundance is one of those festivals where you really do form new collaborations. You meet like-minded filmmakers and you create new projects. So it's a great opportunity to connect with fellow filmmakers.
You could do that at almost any film festival. What makes Sundance different from other film festivals such as Cannes?
Part of it, I think, is that it's so cold. Everybody's so glad to be out of the cold that you're instantly friends. But certainly, I think as an industry, there's a tendency for people to hold back. If you go to the Cannes Film Festival in France, it's very VIP. There's a lot of not being able to access things. In fact, last year they were even giving away badges that said, "I wonder if they'll let me in." But at Sundance, it's a much more open-handed festival. You can be. I've heard lots of stories of people being on the bus into the town, just bumping into famous A-list stars who are taking the bus with everybody else because it's the best way into town. So that closeness as a community, I think, is really, I don't know if I want to say it's unique to Sundance, but it's certainly, there's a lot of it here. The presentations, the talks, if you want to know about how the industry's working, there's a lot of talk at the moment at the festival about financing films, because the new tax bill actually brings quite beneficial opportunities for filmmakers. And so there's a lot of discussion about new approaches to financing films and a lot of talk about international co-productions. It's a good time for the film industry.
Well, that's a good overview. What are some of the other highlights you've seen at the festival?
For me, the most exciting part has the release of new VR and AR and immersive filming experiences. There's some great reviews of films that will make it into the world at large, but I rarely come to see films at film festivals. What I really want to see is about the groundbreaking use of technology. And what we're seeing, interestingly, at Sundance is VR experiences that are creating buzz as creative works, not creating buzz because they're VR, not doing so because it's a new test of the technology, but because the way the story is told is excellent. And there's one piece in particular that a colleague of mine at Adobe, Chris Bobatis, he's head of immersive there, he went to see a film called Hero. And what's amazing about it is that anyone who saw the film got a little grey tartan ribbon tied around their festival badge. And the rules are that you cannot say anything to anybody unless they have one of those ribbons. It's a beautiful way to create buzz at a festival, and a unique way, I think, of making it feel like you're really participating in a project. And people are really being moved by this stuff. The sense of personal presence within VR is now really being used because creatively and in storytelling in a way that we just cannot do with 2D cinema or stereoscopic cinema. So that, for me, has been really exciting.
Now, you were at the festival not just to watch films, but also to participate in some of the sessions, and you, in fact, spoke at one of the sessions. What did you talk about?
I was talking about some of the high-end workflows. We're moving towards 8K film production now. Importantly, you can be assigning a look and a feel for your media on location, and there are workflows for taking that look, those colors, and bringing them right the way through post-production to your output. We were looking at how do you deal with these really high-end, massive frame sizes and work with hardware to get them to play back. We also had a lovely presentation by Vashi Neremansky, who has a film here called 16 Below. And he was talking about some of the challenges of producing that film, which is all in a very snowy, cold environment. But also, it was shot in 6K. And it was an end-to-end 6K production. And that was pretty interesting to see how they overcame the technical challenges.
But isn't 6K and 8K just an excuse for not framing your shots properly in production?
Well, normally, yes. And as a filmmaker, I'm a big fan of shooting maybe 5K for a 4K frame, because it means that you save time on those debates on location where you've got 200 people waiting for you to make a decision. It can really help. But actually, what Vashi did is make a 6K delivered film. So he actually shot 6K and delivered it that way. And so, it was pretty impressive.
If there was one takeaway that you had from Sundance, what would it be?
What it would be is that there is hope for the industry. I think that, I've been here mentoring some film students and talking to them about how to handle the festival. And my number one piece of advice is turn your head and look at the nearest stranger and ask them, are you enjoying the festival? Because everybody is here to meet and talk and engage and network. And I think that the tone of that engagement during the festival has been so lovely. There's so much optimism. There's so much of a feeling that storytelling and media really has an impact in the world. So I would say that my takeaway would be optimism. And
for people that want to keep track of your work and your writing, where can they go on the web?
Probably the easiest option is my website, maximjago.com, maximjago.com. And if you Google me, I'd pop up with that, Maxim Jago, in all the usual suspects.
And it will probably not come as a surprise to anyone listening that is, in fact, Maxim Jago, filmmaker and producer and author and speaker. And Maxim, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Larry.
When you can't find your media, you need a media asset management solution. Keyflow Pro. This simple but powerful software is designed specifically to help you organize, track, and find your media. Whether you work alone or part of a group, its intuitive user interface helps you easily store, sort, search, play, annotate, and share your media using team-based shared libraries over a network. Its wide range of features are all at a very affordable price. And with the new 1.8.3 update, rescanning is up to 10 times faster. Plus, Keyflow Pro is integrated with macOS notifications, enabling you to collaborate faster and smarter, all in real time. Keyflow Pro is available in a Mac App Store, or get a 30-day free trial at keyflowpro.com. Keyflow Pro. Simple, elegant, and surprisingly affordable. Chuck Parker is the executive director of the Art Directors Guild based in Los Angeles, California. The Guild represents production designers, art directors, as well as a wide variety of artists working in film and television. Chuck is a professional production designer himself with over 20 years' experience in the industry. Hello, Chuck. Welcome.
Hi, Larry. How are you?
I'm doing great. How would you describe the Art Directors Guild?
Well, the Art Directors Guild is probably the preeminent representative of visual artists who work in film and television, both domestically and worldwide. Our jurisdiction, however, is in the United States and Canada. But we have members who live and work wherever production takes place.
I can believe that's true. Tonight, we're looking at set design, however that's defined. But before we do, could you clarify the typical roles of a production designer, an art director, or even a set designer?
Well, a production designer's responsibility is to work cohesively and hand in hand with the director and the producer and the cinematographer to realize the vision of the creator of the project and the director's vision. Now, that can be done many different ways. Usually it's by a combination of stage work and shooting on location. That involves selections of palette, whatever elements of design they want to use to be representative of character and moving the story forward.
Well, does a production, does that just translate into creating the physical environment within which the actors work, or is it more than that?
It's more than that, and it involves mood as much as anything.
How so?
There is that, je ne sais quoi aspect about it that is different for every project, depending on what it is. So for television, we spend a lot of time in a van scouting for locations, trying to figure out the most effective way to realize the showrunner's vision. Feature films, you have a little longer time to prep. But it's, the production designer is working cohesively with costume designers as well, not just the cinematographer. We're overseeing props, the decoration of sets, and overseeing the locations department.
Okay, well, let's just focus on stage work, where we have to build a physical set or where construction of a set is involved. Does the production designer do that, or does somebody else on the art team do that?
The production designer oversees that. Now, the production designer's key person is usually his art director, or if it's a larger project, his supervising art director. These art directors will have teams of assistant art directors and set designers working with them. Now, the set designers are the ones who do the actual drafting, the real construction drawings. There's also illustrators involved, storyboard artists. Storyboard artists are working closely with the director and taking information from the set designers, but from these visions where that the storyboard artists are determining, helping to translate what's in the mind of the director to put on the two-dimensional vision onto the page so that we can see what is needed. You might not have to design a whole set. You never know until you get it down there, until you get drawings and sketches. Is that helpful?
Mm-hmm. So what does an art director do?
An art director is the person who makes sure that the production designer's vision is disseminated to all the important members on the team and follows through and makes sure it comes to fruition. They are more of the left brain to the production designer's right brain, if you know what I'm saying.
Very, very clear. I understand that now. Well, you've done a lot of production design yourself, and I've looked in a lot of college catalogs, and I don't see cinematic production designer listed as part of a major anywhere. What got you interested in this in the first place?
Oh, gosh, I had no idea it was even available to me growing up.
Really?
You know, yeah. I came out here and I had a skill as a carpenter. You know, I've been a hippie carpenter, and I had done some historical preservation, so that's somewhat theatrical. And I fell into a situation with some friends, and I started building sets. And we were doing primarily commercials. I came in to get hired by a company, and they had some caves that they had built out of foam. And I said, well, what are these for? And they said, well, these are caves. These are for Lucas. And this is when the third Star Wars movie was being done. And I thought, oh, my goodness, they're doing Star Wars. So I'm going to go to work for this company. I had to go back to San Francisco to finish up some contracts I had. I came back down and I said, well, what happened to Lucas? And they go, well, I said, what happened to Star Wars? And they go, well, what are you talking about? And I said, the caves. And they said, oh, that wasn't Star Wars. That was a commercial for a cereal called C-3POs. And, you know, so I fell into doing commercials and advertising for 2 or 3 years before I finally found my way into movies and television.
Well, what are some of the projects you've worked on before joining the Guild?
Well, before joining the Guild, I worked on The Abyss.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked for a bit on The Hunt for Red October and then Hook. And that was as a builder. And then just a couple short years later, well, then I went from Hook and worked on The Player, Robert Altman movie. And then about a year later, a friend of mine asked me if I was ready to start art directing. He was a successful production designer. And I joined up with him and started art directing. And within a year, I was a member of the Guild.
Well, that shows as a perfect transition to tell us about the Guild. What does it take to become a member?
It's not easy, and it takes some people many years. You know, to be working on a non-union show, to be art directing on a non-union show or set designing that flips, that becomes union, that gets organized, is a good way in. Now, there is less and less non-union work. So that is problematic. We do have a portfolio review, and we also have a PA apprentice program to get in. That's pretty much it for right now.
Well,
there is a way, there is a side letter to our contract that allows for the hiring of what's called off-roster assistant art directors if they have worked for a certain number of days, you know, in a craft that we represent already. So that is a way that many people come in.
Well, do Guild members get royalties from the films they work on?
No, we do not. We do not, sadly.
I can understand that.
Now, I directed an episode of Monk, you know, which is a show I did in its entirety, and Monk's a gift that keeps on giving, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you do enjoy royalties. Now, through the years, it gets lower and lower. They don't. It's not as generous in the subsequent years as it is in the initial years. But no, we do not have that. Now, the IA the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees, our mother union, we do have what's called an IAP, which is an individual account plan, where a certain percentage of everything you make is paid by the AMPTP into your account. So in the end, when you retire, you have sort of a lump sum of money in addition to your pension. It's the closest thing we have to royalties.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to become a production designer and ultimately join the guild, but mainly start to practice the craft?
I would advise them to really pay close attention to art, the history of art, the history of design, hone their skills, be able to communicate two-dimensionally. Even the most simple form of drawing can be very valuable to express depth, scale, and proportion. I also studied folklore, so material culture, just being aware of things, out there in the world, objects, whatever, it's just important to be aware of physical reality. Also, master the elements of design, color, form, shape, and texture, and be well versed in the psychology of color.
And for people that want to learn more about the Guild, where can they go on the web?
Well, they can go to adg.org.
That's
Art Directors Guild.
That's
ADG.
That's adg.org. And Chuck
That's
Parker
correct.
is the Executive Director of the Art Directors Guild. And Chuck, thanks for joining us today. This has been fascinating.
Thank you, Larry. My pleasure.
Take care. Bye-bye. Mark Andrew Reyes is the lead theater technician for the Conejo Recreation and Park District Cultural Unit at the Hillcrest Center for the Arts, and he's been there since 1998. He designs sets, and that's exactly what we want to talk about. Hello, Mark. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. We're glad to be here.
Well, in my intro, I've described what you do, but how would you describe your job?
Basically, I work with the local theater groups that rent the facility and also our in-house children's theater. I'm the technical director, so they bring their designs already to me, and I help them, realize their vision on stage, always understanding their budgets and such like that. And then for the children's theater, the Young Artists Ensemble, I am one of the set designers and lighting designers that also do the shows here.
Well, we just heard from Chuck Parker, who's with the Art Directors Guild, about creating sets for professional productions like film and TV shows. You create sets for educational and non-professional projects. Is there a difference?
Oh, I would say there's a big difference. I deal directly with young actors and their parents, so I think the level of working with the parents and stuff, that kind of sets a different bar than working in the pro sector.
But is there a difference in the set itself? Do you view set design differently?
I don't think so. I think the idea is to realize the director's vision. You're always having to work within the idea behind the original concept of the production, the director's vision, the realities of budgeting. So I think in any, whether your budget is, $20 or $20 million, I think you have to still follow the same procedures.
Well, you're not working with $20 million budget.
Oh, I wish.
What is it about your job that appeals to you? What do you like?
I love working with the kids. I've been with the Park and Rec off and on since 1998. Just the energy you get off these kids. We work with them from ages 10 through 19. We also work with them trying to teach them technical aspects. So we have kids that are up and coming set designers, lighting designers, and sound designers that, work on our productions as well. And I think that would be the main focus for me. I've always loved working with that aspect.
So a bunch of eager young students and their parents have walked up to you and dropped a whole bunch of hand-drawn sketches on your lap. How do you determine what needs to be built?
We look at the sketches. We are fortunate in that we do have a lot of stock platforms, flats, walls, set pieces. We have a lot of generic furniture pieces. So we're kind of very fortunate in that aspect. and I see what can be done with our existing items. Then we see, okay, what we have to build, what we might have to rent, what we might have to rethink as we go along those lines. Again, it always comes down to, do we have the time and the money and the resources to complete the project?
How do you convince a 15-year-old that their idea is incorrect?
Oh, that's really hard. Gently as possible and as tactfully as possible. We've had some times where we've had not just 15-year-olds, but young directors, any directors come in, and they have a great, clear vision. They want to do this production in a certain way, and they want these elements emphasized, this period style, or they love something about this particular, the overall look of the show. And we just basically say, okay, this is what we can do. I can give you this. What I try and do is tell them what I can give them, not what I can't give them. It's trying to let them down. If there's also always considering, we are in a black box facility. So basically it's an open stage. So we have a lot of creativity. We have a lot of wiggle room there, but there's also fire codes to consider, safety codes to consider. And that's a lot of times where we run into problems. And that's when we deal with that, when we're able to tell them, hi, we would love to be able to do that, but no, we can't have a giant bonfire in the middle of the set, no matter what you're thinking of doing there. Just doesn't work in Ventura County, no.
Well, that gets to a bigger point. Who's responsible to make sure that the cast and crew remain safe when they're working on stage or building a set?
If it's our in-house production, ultimately I am responsible for those, basically responsible for the safety and making sure that everything is done properly. I come in and visit with the incoming productions. We have community theater groups that rent the facility, and generally through correspondence, emails, we get their drawings, their ideas, and we work with them in that way. We also have a set of like what we call a tech rider, which is a basic rules and regulations, what is allowed and what isn't. There we spell out very clearly so they understand fire codes, restrictions. A big thing is usually with theater is, are they using firearms or swords? Both things require special rehearsals. Both things require special permission and consideration and safety regulations.
How much time would you recommend for a cast to get comfortable with a set?
I'd say 2 weeks. That would be perfect. 3 would be fantastic. If a cast has 3 weeks to work on a set, there's pretty much nothing that can't be done. No matter how good a draftsman you are, or how great you use a computer program, a drafting program, or use CAD drawings, there are directors that just cannot see what's on paper and translate it to a rehearsal space that's half the size of the theater. And that's nothing against them. They're all working, with it, trying to get the different levels and ideas of how high the platform is, how many steps that is. There's only so much blue tape on the floor can really tell you. That would be the biggest thing there. Several times you will see when you go to a rehearsal space, they literally will have the set taped out. We're fortunate here, like in our summer production, when we do our big teen summer musical, we actually are able to strip the theater bare, tape out the exact space, and sometimes actually build the exact set in advance while the rehearsals are going on. Now that's unique for us, and we're very blessed with that. Most of the time, theaters will move into a theater and the set that they've rented from a civic light opera halfway across the country will show up, and they are praying and hoping that it is the same right set that they rented. There's a very famous story of a local theater group that rented a set of The Sound of Music, and when the trucks arrived, it was the wrong set. And they were opening within like 6 days. So that was some quick thinking on their part.
Oh, my goodness. What do you do with a set after the show's closed?
If it's standard stuff, most of our flats and walls are either 4x8 or 4x10. We keep them. We store them. I've got a shop area that's kind of jammed packed, as well as 2 storage containers that are full of stuff. I currently have it's in 3 pieces, but I have the car from Greece that we built for last year's summer musical. And we're currently, we have people now call us up and like to rent it out. So for some things like that, we can reutilize them, especially items like that. We just recently did A Christmas Story, the musical here. And there are some specialty props for that show, the leg lamp, the BB gun and stuff. And now we're looking at making those available to other productions as well. It's just finding some place to store them while we're waiting. Otherwise, a lot of times you'll throw things. That's when the dumpster gets used, and you have to say goodbye to things. It's a hard choice.
It's always a hard choice. Mark, for people who want to learn more about what you and your creative team are up to, where can they go on the web?
The website would be www.hillcrestarts.com, and that provides information on our facility, on our programs here, as well as links to the Conejo Recreation and Park District and our own youth theater group, the Young Artists Ensemble.
That website is all one word, hillcrestarts.com. hillcrestarts.com. Mark Andrew Reyes is the lead theater technician for the Conejo Recreation and Park District Cultural Unit at the Hillcrest Center for the Arts. And Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much. A pleasure to be here.
Marti Romances is the creative director of Territory Studio. Based in San Francisco, they specialize in motion design, visual effects, and digital experiences for film, games, and brands. Some of their film credits include Blade Runner 2049, Ghost in the Shell, The Martian, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Guardians of the Galaxy. Hello, Marti. Welcome.
Hi, Larry.
How would you describe what Territory Studios does?
Well, we do specialize on graphics that most of them are futuristic or for real-life technologies. And those graphics live on set, and whenever we have a graphic that is not possible to recreate physically, we do operate on the post-production phase as well. So our niche, let's say, it's creating those interfaces and all those visuals that they are playing on set.
Well, give me an example.
Well, a good example on set, surely you've seen The Martian, where they're looking at those big screens in mission control. So those screens were 3 by 3 meter panels, and they were big visuals that they were giving lots of cues, and they were telling a lot of the narrative for each different scene. Those graphics are what we produce, and sometimes it's in a mission control, sometimes it's in a spaceship cockpit, sometimes it's in a CIA monitoring room. There are plenty of different contexts where we have to produce those graphics for. And as you said, Blade Runner, Avengers, each one has its different intricacies and its different styles as well.
Do the actors see these, or are these all added in post?
They see those, and sometimes even we create interactive pieces where the actors can touch and can interact with that. So the continuity and the narrative, it's tied to the script. And sometimes also there's just more backgrounds screens that they help the context of each set. And also, I guess what we hear from the actors and actresses that when they arrive on the sets and they see that everything looks like it's real and it's working, it really helps for them engaging on their action and for each scene.
Who do you work under the direction of? I mean, the director's responsible for the whole film, but are you working under production design or set design, or are you a standalone department?
Usually we are mixed with the art department, and we are under the direction of the production designer, and we also end up showing things to directors. And that's especially on pre-production when we are establishing the styles for each set, the styles for each character. And I would say director and production designer, and therefore the ADs, so the art directors for each different part of the film.
What's the process for creating one of these inserts? Walk me through what you do.
Well, first of all, we read the script and we identify whatever we will need to create graphics for the scenes. But what we do is we go through a research process for whatever we have to create those graphics for. If it's for a character, a Marvel character, we try to dig into all the background story and what kind of technology this character will be using. Then we start throwing a bunch of references and mood boards with the production designer and directors to see, to start narrowing the style and to see what the looks that they are after. And sometimes those references come from all sorts of different things, not specifically user interfaces, but sometimes we just show things like undersea creatures if they're looking for a more organic look and feel, something we did for Prometheus, for example, that ends up defining a lot of our graphics and also the color palettes. So we start defining the style with the different elements that we're going to be using in our designs, color palettes, typography, graphics. Some directors really want to go very real life, like we did with Ridley Scott and The Martian. Whatever other ones, they really want us to approach it in a more futuristic and fantasy world that they're trying to recreate, and that's usually what Marvel asks us to do. Once we've done this exploration, we start designing, we start putting some of our work in front of the director and production designer, and when they agree that that's a good direction, then we start producing the volume of screens. We design all those screens or all those projections or all those holograms, and then we animated them. We animate them to live on set, and sometimes, again, holograms that are not possible to recreate in real life, then we save that for the post-production process.
What's your deliverable? Is it a series of still images or an application or a movie or what?
For the on-set graphics, we deliver on background screens that they are not tied to any narrative. We deliver looping videos that let's say, simulate those systems working in the background. And for more hero screens that they have to be tied to a narrative, they have to tell the story, then we deliver either cue points on the animation, so they can trigger those whatever they need to happen when they're shooting, or interactive pieces if the actors or actor needs to interact with them. And sometimes we produced over 500 screen designs for a film. We were around 500 screens for The Martian, for Avengers, but maybe for Blade Runner, Denis wanted less screens on set. He wanted to keep it a bit more real, so we ended up producing 100, but they were all very thoughtful. The process that we go through is very thoughtful. We don't do things just because. We try to elevate that, the set design with those screens that at the end, they emit light, and the DOPs really like to be able to put the lens here and there, and how these screens are also part of the lighting of the set. So it's a bit of a mix depending on who you work with.
It's an interesting blend of both visual design and technology, it seems to me.
It is, and we're very happy to be in that, with this process, especially when we're trying to recreate something or to create actually something for the future. It's almost like sometimes we see how our designs later on can influence new ideas. We can influence new technologies that maybe they're coming a bit after when these technologies are available to us, and we can relate to lots of things that we've seen in movies, like all the touch screens that we're looking at, all the touch and screen gestures we see in the iPads and iPhones nowadays. We see how Minority Report back in the days start introducing this idea before we even had like touch screens and multi-touch screens. So we really like to be in that middle ground between technology, what it could be done in the future, how we imagine it, and how we push this technology to to the next mile, and see how that could end up affecting and influencing our real life technology that we'll be using maybe in 20 years or more. We're just trying to help directors tell the story that sometimes they will need to spend a couple of minutes with two actors, which are very expensive, talking about what they're going to do. They try to solve these problems sometimes showing a graphic that tells how we're going from A to B, and the audience need to understand that in a second. And as soon as you see that graphic, that's very useful for directors to get a shortcut to telling that story and those narratives through graphic design, which is what we find very interesting. So I think that's our main that's our main focus, to just make sure that we can help them with their creations.
Marti, for people who want to keep track of what you guys are doing or maybe hire you for their next project, where can they go on the web?
So they could go to territorystudio.com, and in there we have examples on work that we've created both for real technologies, for sets, for VFX, titles, title sequences, and they can have a look there, and we're more than happy to talk with everyone we have an office in London and in San Francisco, and we keep expanding and keep growing.
That website is all one word, Territory Studio, TerriToryStudio, territorystudio.com. And Marti Romances is the creative director for Territory Studio. And Marti, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Larry. It's my pleasure. Amazing show.
Here's another website I want to introduce you to, doddleNEWS.com. DoddleNEWS gives you a portal into the broadcast, video, and film industries. It's a leading online resource presenting news, reviews, and products for the film and video industry. DoddleNEWS also offers a resource guide and crew management platform specifically designed for production. These digital call sheets, along with their app, directory, and premium listings, provide in-depth organizational tools for busy production professionals. DoddleNEWS is a part of the Thalo Arts community, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with the resources you need to succeed. Whether you want the latest industry news, need to network with other creative professionals, or require state-of-the-art online tools to manage your next project, there's only one place to go, doddleNEWS.com. Jayse Hansen is a visual storyteller who creates fictional computer user interface designs for blockbuster film franchises like The Hunger Games, Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Wars, and many more. Whether designing and animating R2-D2's holographic map to Luke Skywalker or Tony Stark's Jarvis holograms and heads-up displays, Jayse has created iconic interfaces that help tell the stories we love and shape how we view the future. Hello, Jayse. Welcome.
Hey, Larry. How you doing, man?
I am really excited to be chatting with you because you make the impossible magical. It's really, really cool. How would you describe what you do?
That's always a hard question, man. It's basically a kind of a super niche in the visual effects world of feature films. And it has to do with anything that actors are interacting with, little devices, little computer devices or computer displays, on up to holograms that are in the scene, like R2-D2's holograms, stuff like that. And also heads-up displays. So when Iron Man puts on his mask and he's got all these graphics, all that stuff needs to be designed, animated, composited. And so there's usually a small team on that. And I lucked out and tended to get jobs where I was designing a lot of that kind of stuff. So I'm like the fanboy still. Every job that I do, I'm like the geek fan working on it. I totally geek out on it.
So what first got you interested in creating real-looking stuff that doesn't exist?
I started out doing like print design and then doing kind of commercials and stuff. And I met a guy named Mark Colleran who does this type of work, and he's done it for like, all kinds of films like The Island and Mission Impossible. And when I saw his reel and all that crazy cool stuff, which I've always loved, I guess I just never thought that was somebody's day-to-day job. And so I basically, after I saw that, I did not sleep until I made sure that was my day-to-day. And so for the past 8 or 9 years, that's pretty much all I've done. And I love it. I still, like I said, I just have a fun time doing it.
Well, not only do you have a fun time doing it, you've got a passionate fan club that's following along behind. That's coming up with all kinds of comments on our live chat. So they're cheering.
That's awesome. I pay them. So
they're cheering for you in the background. How do you coordinate your work with the director, the production designer, and the art director?
So it often depends on where we come in during the filmmaking process. So we can come in anywhere from where it's in concept phase, and it's that time where we're usually working with the production designer, art director, or we'll come in while they're filming, which is also a lot of the production designer. And then a lot of times we'll come in after the fact, after everything's been filmed, and we'll do it as a post-production process where we'll work with the visual effects supervisor mainly and the director and the editor.
Well, are your set elements available to the actors to use or see on set, or are they having to imagine what it looks like because they're all going to be added in post?
Right, yeah. A lot of times it's both. We try to give them as much as possible on set, and actors, obviously, they love that. So like on Mockingjay, we came in, I worked with that on that with Cantina Creative, and also Philip Messina was the production designer on that. So, trying to get everything on set for the actors to work with and explaining the thought behind the UI so they kind of know, they kind of feel, confident using their advanced computer system. And then sometimes, like if it's a hologram, it's kind of really hard to do that, on set. So what we've done sometimes, like on RoboCop, we did a bunch of designs. They printed them out on these large, like 9-foot tall acetate pieces. They hung them up, and then the director could, kind of shoot through the hologram, plan his shot. The actors could work with it. Then they take away the acetate and they film it with nothing there, and then in post add it all back in.
Well, let's go back to Mockingjay, just to give us an example. What were you creating? What scene was it in, and what did the actors have to look at?
Okay, so for instance, in a lot of the scenes, especially Mockingjay 1, we did kind of Mockingjay 1 and 2 almost at the same time, but this was all filmed in Atlanta on a lot of sets there and stuff. And they lit pretty much the entire scenes with our monitors, which were anything from small iPads. I think they had about 23 iPads that they snuck into different things. You put a different bezel on it. The set designers are amazing. They have such detail on it. So you'd have this thing that looks like an old school, Cold War era kind of thing, and behind it's just an iPad. So we had everything from iPads to these large rear projection screens that were like 50 foot, wide. And in Mockingjay 1, they kind of told the whole second half of the story through these large projector screens. So Katniss and Mr. Snow, the evil President Snow, they're fighting between, they're doing it all between these screens that have these UIs around them. And so it was very important that, with this drama going on, it was very emotional scenes, that they have something for them to react to. And also, there's glitching on the screens and stuff like that. That's all got to be reflected when they're filming close-ups on their faces and stuff like that. So, so that's pretty much, like an example of how we would do that. A lot of times we'll do temp graphics and then we'll finish. So on that one in particular, we do a lot of temp graphics as well. And then in post, replace them out through some smoke and magic visual effects with more detailed versions.
Okay, well, let's take a step back. You've now been locked into a room which has no air, no water, and no food, and the script to the soon-to-be-produced Star Wars is now sitting on your lap. What creative process do you go through as you're reading this script and trying to decide what you're going to do?
Oh, you were there. Yeah, so Star Wars Force Awakens, Episode 7 was my dream project. I hunted it down for like a year trying to find out who was working on it, and then finally got a call. And I got to work on it with my buddy Andrew Kramer and Navarro Parker, some really great guys. And so, yeah, that was the scenario. It was kind of like, okay, we're going to reinvent the look of Star Wars, but we're not going to reinvent it completely. We need to really tie it into that 70s kind of retro vibe. So we'll get these kind of directives often from the director and from the visual effects supervisor. We'll read through as much as we can. In that case, we had a lot of footage that was already filmed, so I'll study that, go through it, and then I'll sit down with pen and paper and just sketch it out. And I allow myself. I'm not a very good artist, so the first rule is allow yourself to draw really badly and just get the ideas out. Then I'll try to tighten it up and show that to usually the visual effects supervisor, get a read on it, and then go in and start making it real in Illustrator and Cinema 4D and After Effects.
What happens when you disagree with a creative decision a director has made, or that they've got a vision that's impossible to create?
Oh, I never disagree. There's some things where what I usually try to do is try to do both scenarios. I'll try to do exactly what they asked for, and I'll try to do, my version that I think is better. And of course, I'll try to make, the version they asked for look not quite as good. I'll add a flash frame here or there. I'll desaturate it a little bit, and that often will have them go for my version. So that's one technique. The other way is, sometimes with things like on Avengers, we had a request for fitting a bunch of 3D models into the graphics that would have to be reduced really, really small. And so that makes it hard to read. But to compound that, they were 3D models of aliens. So it was something that we just can't recognize that easily, especially really tiny. So I kind of just did it with graphics instead, hoping that would be, and then explained why I didn't do it with the little 3D models. And luckily, they really liked the way I did it with the symbols, basically, with graphics.
Jayse, for people that want to hire you for their next project, although I suspect you're probably booked for the next 30 years, where can they go on the web?
They can go to my website, jayse.tv, which is JAYSE.tv.
That's all one word, JAYSE.tv. And Jayse Hansen is the Jayse himself, a maker of the impossible and making it look believable. Jayse, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Larry. Thank you for having me again.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
I was just thinking, a set provides the geographical center to a film or video, but a set is more than just four walls and a floor. Think about the last time you were looking for a house to buy or an apartment to rent. Walking into the empty room defined by floors and walls and ceiling gave you a sense of the space, but it wasn't a home. It wasn't until you filled it with furniture and all the small things we collect throughout our lives that converted that space into a home, a place that represents us. It's the same for a set. Simply putting up a wall or putting a chair in the middle of an empty room doesn't make it personal. It isn't until we fill that space with the things that represent that character that a space looks lived in and believable. Too often, we allow the technology to drive our thinking, but we aren't truly defined by our technology. Instead, we're defined by the small objects on our desk, or the art on our walls, or the colors of our rooms. It's the design of what's in the spaces that we inhabit that breathes life and believability into our characters. That's where the magic of set and production design live, in making the spaces our characters inhabit look lived in and believable. In fact, the first things we notice about any actor is where they are, what they're wearing, and the objects around them. This forms a picture of their character before any words are spoken or any plot points developed. Walls are good. Furniture is better. But we can understand a character simply by looking at their room, even without any people in it. Just something I'm thinking about. I want to thank our guests this week, Chuck Parker with the Art Directors Guild, Mark Andrew Reyes with the Hillcrest Center for the Arts, Marti Romances with Territory Studio, Jayse Hansen, Fictional UI designer, Maxim Jago, filmmaker, and James DeRuvo with doddleNEWS. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online and all available to you today. And remember to sign up for our free weekly show newsletter that comes out every Saturday. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner, with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Text transcripts are provided by Take One Transcription. Visit takeone.tv to learn how they can help you. Our producer is Debbie Price. My name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for listening to the Digital Production Buzz. The Digital Production Buzz is copyright 2018 by Thalo LLC.
The Digital Production Buzz was brought to you by Keyflow Pro, a simple but powerful media asset manager for collaboration over a network. Download a free 30-day trial at keyflowpro.com.